This happened in the fall of 2022, when I was visiting my cousin Josh out in rural Oregon. He lives in a small town surrounded by thick woods and long stretches of highway with barely any cell service. I had just gone through a rough breakup and needed to clear my head, so spending a couple of weeks in the middle of nowhere sounded perfect. Josh had to work weekdays, so I had the house to myself. Most afternoons, I'd take his old bike and ride down this long, quiet road that cut through the forest. It was peaceful, no cars, no people. Just the sound of tires on gravel and birds in the trees. One day, I went further than usual, way past the usual loop I did. I didn't keep track of how far I went, but eventually, I found this hidden trail that veered off into the woods. It looked barely used, like an old maintenance path or something. Curiosity got the better of me, so I left the bike and started walking it. About 5 minutes in, I came to this steep ditch along the left side of the trail. It was maybe 10 feet deep, with thick brush and rotting leaves at the bottom. I almost didn't notice him, but I swear to God, there was a man lying down there. At first I thought he was dead. His clothes were dirty, like he'd been out there for days, and he was lying in this awkward position with one leg bent under him. His head was facing away, so I couldn't see his face. I just stood there frozen, not sure what to do. My gut said not to call out, but I was worried he might be hurt. So I called out anyway. "Hey, you okay down there?" No movement. I took a couple steps closer to the edge, trying to get a better look. "Hey man, do you need help?" I asked again. Still nothing. That's when I pulled out my phone, but of course no service. I was about to climb down when I noticed something that made me stop cold. He blinked. I swear, I saw his eye barely open. But he didn't move any other part of his body. He just kept laying there, still as a corpse, with one eye barely open, watching me. Something felt off. My instincts kicked in hard, telling me to leave. So I slowly backed away from the ditch, turned around, and walked briskly back toward the bike. I didn't want to run, just in case he was faking being hurt and was planning to chase me. I kept looking over my shoulder every few seconds, half expecting him to be crawling out of that ditch. But when I finally made it back to the bike, I felt this weird sense of relief, like I'd escaped something. That night, I told Josh about it. He kind of laughed it off, saying maybe the guy was a drunk hiker or a homeless person camping in the woods. Still, he admitted it was weird that he didn't respond at all. I couldn't shake the feeling, so a couple days later I convinced Josh to go back there with me during the day. We hiked out to the trail and found the ditch. The man was gone. No sign of him. But what was there made my stomach drop. At the bottom of the ditch, in the same spot where the man had been lying, was a fresh animal carcass. A deer. Its neck had been snapped clean, like it had been twisted. There was no blood, no signs of struggle, just the body. Josh wanted to leave right then. I agreed. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every little noise outside Josh's cabin had me wide-eyed. Around 2 a.m., I heard something that made my blood run cold. Slow, heavy footsteps on the gravel road outside. They stopped right outside my window. I didn't move. I didn't even breathe. After maybe 10 seconds, I finally got the courage to peek through the curtain. I wish I hadn't. Standing by the tree line was a man. Same clothes. Same weird posture. Just standing there, looking at the house. He didn't move. Didn't come closer. Just stood there, barely visible in the moonlight. I watched him for what felt like hours. Eventually, I must have fallen asleep, because when I woke up, it was morning, and he was gone. Josh and I filed a report with the sheriff, but there wasn't much they could do. No one matching the description had been seen. They said there were no missing persons in the area. I cut my trip short after that. It's been over a year now, and I still have no idea what I saw out there. Whether it was a person, or something pretending to be one. All I know is, when your gut tells you something's wrong, you listen. Because whatever was lying in that ditch, it wasn't just waiting. It was hunting. I moved into my uncle's old house after he passed. It wasn't sudden, he had cancer, and he'd prepared everything for me to inherit it. It was a 2-story house with a weird, narrow attic, and sat on the edge of a quiet pine forest. I was 26, broke, and fresh out of a bad breakup, so this place felt like both a curse and a blessing. The house was mostly untouched. I found old coats still hanging on hooks, canned food past expiration in the pantry, even photo albums with pictures of people I didn't know. My uncle had lived alone for years. No wife, no kids. Just him in this house. The first week was uneventful. I worked from home, so I spent a lot of time in the downstairs office. Nights were quiet, except for creaks in the ceiling, which I wrote off as the house settling. But then things started to feel off. One morning, I found the back door unlocked. I was sure I locked it the night before. Then, the microwave had numbers typed in that I didn't press. I thought maybe I was just sleep deprived. Then one night, around 2 a.m., I heard what sounded like soft footsteps above me, directly above. In the attic. I froze. I hadn't even been up there yet. I grabbed a flashlight and a kitchen knife, trying to laugh it off like I was being ridiculous. The attic entrance was a pull-down ladder in the hallway. I tugged it down slowly, every part of me tense. The smell hit me first. Dust, and something like rotting wood. I climbed up. It was narrow, cold, with those thick old beams running along the roof. I panned the flashlight side to side. Nothing. Except, there was a flattened sleeping bag in the corner. A few granola wrappers. An empty water jug. A flashlight, dead. And a pair of boots. Someone had been living here. I scrambled back down and called the police. They swept the attic and the surrounding woods. Found nothing. No one. They said whoever had been up there was gone now. But things didn't stop. Food kept disappearing from the fridge. The toilet seat would be up when I knew I left it down. Once, I came home from a walk and saw my office chair slightly turned toward the door, when I always left it tucked in. I bought a camera. I hid it in the hallway facing the attic entrance. 2 nights later, I checked the footage. And I wish I hadn't. At 3:13 a.m., I watched the attic door slowly descend. A man, tall and thin, dropped down like a spider. He walked barefoot to the kitchen, drank milk from the bottle, then just stood at the foot of my bed. He watched me sleep for 17 minutes. Then he climbed back up into the attic. I called the cops again. They searched again. Still no one. It was like he vanished. They told me to move out for my safety. But I didn't. I don't know why. Maybe I was too broke. Maybe too stubborn. So I bought locks. New cameras. Kept a bat by my bed. And then one night I heard it. The whisper. It came from the attic. Just one word. Jake. That's my name. I packed a bag, left, and didn't come back for 3 weeks. When I returned, I brought 3 friends. We searched the house top to bottom. Nothing. But when I climbed into the attic again, everything was gone. No sleeping bag. No wrappers. No boots. Except for one thing taped to the wall. A Polaroid. Of me sleeping. Taken from above. I sold the house 2 months later. The guy who bought it, he called me last week. He said he's been hearing footsteps above his room at night. I moved into this house alone. It was a foreclosure, dirt cheap, in a decent neighborhood. The kind of house that made you feel like you were finally starting life on your own terms. At first, everything was perfect. The place needed some work, but I liked that. Kept me busy. I was working remotely, ordering furniture, doing the renovations myself. And then I found the door. It was in the basement, behind the old water heater. I only noticed it when I dropped a wrench and had to crawl into a corner I hadn't looked at before. A metal hatch, about 4 feet tall with no handle, painted the same gray as the cement walls. I thought it was some old utility thing, but when I pushed on it, it gave way. It opened into a tunnel. A freaking tunnel in my basement. I should have called someone, but my dumb curiosity won. I grabbed a flashlight and stepped inside. It was narrow, maybe 5 feet high, and just wide enough for one person. The walls were rough stone, not cement. It looked old, like really old. It didn't match the rest of the house. I followed it maybe 30 feet until it opened into a small stone room. And in the middle of the room was a single wooden chair. Just a chair. That's when I started to feel cold. Not the room, it was like something behind me had shifted. I turned fast. Nothing. I took a few photos and left. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about that chair. It wasn't dusty. It wasn't even scratched. It looked like someone put it there yesterday. And then around 2:30 a.m., I heard something. From the basement. It sounded like the scrape of wood on stone. Like a chair being pushed back. I didn't go down. I sat in bed until the sun came up. The next day, I bolted the hidden door shut. And that should have been it. But every night after that, the noise came back. Louder. Not just scraping. Breathing. Sometimes a whisper. Once, I swear I heard someone say, "Sit down." After a week, I installed a motion-activated camera in the basement. The first 2 nights, nothing. Then on night 3, around 3:12 a.m., The camera recorded the hatch door swinging open by itself. And someone crawled out. It wasn't a person. Not really. It looked like a man, but his limbs were too long, his head tilted too far, like his neck was broken. He moved across the basement floor like he was weightless. Then he looked up, right into the camera, and smiled. The video cut off right there. When I checked the feed in real time, the camera was fried. Static. I packed a bag and went to stay at a friend's. I returned in daylight with a professional, some paranormal investigator guy. He walked into the tunnel, stood in that room for maybe 5 minutes, and came back pale as hell. He told me, whatever that thing is, it's not human, and it doesn't want the door closed. I didn't wait. I moved out the next day. Didn't even pack everything. Last week, I drove by the house. Couldn't help it. There was a light on in the basement. And in the window, someone was standing there, just staring at me, smiling.